2005. Yeah.
Meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, October 8, 2019, come to order. Please silence all cell phones. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Colodi,
Here.
Commissioner Sachs,
Here.
Commissioner McGurk,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman,
Here.
and Mayor Owen did notify me in advance that he would be absent for this meeting.
Okay. First up is public participation. This is your chance to address the Commission on any city business you'd like. Please speak only from the podium and direct all comments to the Commission as a body and not at individual members of the Commission, staff, or audience. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and we ask that you strictly limit your comments to the time allotted so that you may have a chance to be heard. Large group representing single issues or views are asked to name a spokesperson. Other members of the group in attendance that are not speaking may be identified to show of hands. So public comment is now open. This is your chance to speak. Please state your name.
During the discussion,
Please state your name and address
my
for the record.
name is Terry Hotard. I live at 257 Minorca Beach Way. Will you open up the discussion about the city manager and the city clerk's position to the public?
No, it's done at this time right now.
Pardon me?
This is the time for that.
Oh, okay. Well, again, my name is Terry Hotard. I'm a longtime property owner in New Smyrna, but short-time resident. I just retired, so I moved over here. Some of the happiest and the saddest times of my life have been here in New Smyrna. Raised our kids here, and unfortunately in 1988, my son was hit and killed on the beach in New Smyrna Beach. But that's not why I'm here tonight. Why I'm here tonight is coming from the fact that I'm a lifelong resident of Winter Park. I served on the city council for 10 years, and I was elected mayor in 2000 and served to 2003, I think shortly after you got there, Randy.
Yeah, before I got there, yes.
I had 2 opportunities to be where you are tonight to talk about the disposition of the city manager. The city clerk worked for the city manager, so that wasn't something we discussed. But we did a worldwide search for city managers after we disposed of the city manager that we had hired through a headhunter. Well, we couldn't agree on one particular one, so we ended up giving it to our public works director, which I'm sure you remember, Jim Williams. Jim Williams was our public works director, and he turned out to be probably the best city manager that Winter Park has ever had. You can go out and you can find a city manager, you can spend a lot of money on a headhunter, but the chances are, at the end of the day, they're going to bring you a collective amount of candidates, and then you're probably not going to agree on them because you're not going to know them. At least I don't know Khalid. I've never met him. He held the door for me the other day when I came in the city hall. He seems like a nice enough guy. That's all I know about him. I have done a little research. He's been with the city a number of years, but I can tell you that it's really important to get somebody that the citizens know, feel comfortable with. And in my position, my thought is that you need somebody that public safety feels comfortable with. Because if you don't have a good transparency and a good line of communication between the city manager and public safety, they can make your life really, really miserable. So I think I think that at least, he's got 30 years of experience with the city. Apparently he's doing a good job. But I can tell you that going out and looking for a city manager from another city, because New Smyrna is only 30,000 people, the chances of you getting somebody, first of all, they're going to want to come to Florida, and they're going to want to retire. And so the most you're going to get out of them is probably 5 years. They're going to probably be in the drop before they even get here. So I think that, he looks like he's got at least another 10 years left to tread life on his tire. So,
Mr. Hotar, your time is up. Thank you very much.
okay.
Is there anybody else?
Randy Herman, 108 Esther Street. Good evening, and I want to thank you for the continued commitment to accessibility and transparency by having this meeting. But I must admit, if I were where you are, I'd be uncomfortable, particularly Khalid, being in the object of the discussion, which obviously has to be about his behavior as well as the position. My comment is more on clarity, which I hope will be coming from you all tonight. But my original understanding was that the process was going to be an interim position, and then the question was, do we go out for a search, or do we make a decision about the current interim position and appoint that person and then develop the contract around that person? I appreciate if that is going to be clarified tonight, and I assume it will be. And I wish you well in the deliberations, because I think it's a difficult process, and I know you are at the same place as all the citizens. We want the best for the city. So good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll close public participation. We're here tonight to discuss the interim positions for both the city manager and the city clerk. So, city attorney, do you have a report?
Yes, we have two acting employment agreements, one with the city manager and one with the city clerk. As drafted, they have until January roughly to kind of finalize the situation. I think Khaled's is December and Kelly's is January. At your August 13th, 2019 meeting, you all talked about wanting to get everything wrapped up in October. So we talked a lot. I went back and watched the meeting. We talked a lot about timelines and dates and all of those things. So we're here tonight to discuss where you all want to go with this. Whether the direction is to enter into contract negotiations with one or both, or do a search, or that tonight is your time for discussion based on that August 13th direction that was given.
Thank you. So, anybody care to comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor.
okay.
Go ahead.
We have three positions in town here that basically report to us. We have really no standards for how they are hired, how they are evaluated. I really think we have to address that, as well as what to do with the interim position, the two employees who work very well, to set a real clear path forward for what we do next. I know we decided that we wanted to expedite the decision whether to appoint or reappoint. I have no trouble extending their interim positions until we resolve really the overriding issue as to how we're going to fairly look at these positions, both from a public standpoint, from our standpoint, and from their standpoint. And I think until we establish that, I'm not ready to act right now on either extending or appointing. I have spoke with all three of the positions, including Carrie, about the way that I would like to go forward, and I would like to include that in this discussion now.
She is currently under contract, so it would not be a part of this discussion. We can certainly discuss it at a later date, but this meeting was specifically for the two interim positions. So,
Well, I would like to establish a way to evaluate all three of those positions.
okay.
I think it would be unfair to pick 2 out of 3 and say we're going to set standards for you.
Yeah.
I know that she's under contract, and we've discussed this, and certainly it wouldn't interfere with that at this point, but as was brought up by the gentleman from the floor, it is nice to look within to see who we may want to reappoint, but Carrie did not come from within, and that's worked out very fine. So I would like that to be part of this discussion.
Commissioner Sacks?
Just to follow Commissioner Colodey's comments, if we're talking about the vein of appraisal, and we would like to consider future appraisals for all 3 positions, I think I'm not sure whether it was Ms. Avalone or Ms. McQuillan who sent us options of different cities' types of appraisals. I think that's something we could consider tonight. I noticed that for me, simply the one that's most visible and easy to read was a very good form. I think that would be a good place to start if that's where we would like to start. If it was our will tonight to draw up a firm contract for any of the positions, for me, personally, I'm not ready. Our interim city manager still has through December for his interim period. I would like to use that time to continue appraisal. I'm speaking for myself, of course. So to draw up, if our motive was to draw up a contract or talk about terms of a contract, I don't think I'm there yet either. I think that we should do our due diligence in the interest of the citizens. Khaled is working pretty well, but at the same time, we do need to follow procedures, I believe, and those procedures would be putting out requests for qualifications for these positions, even for Ms. McQuillan, who's doing a wonderful job as well. Is it proper that we do not notice, at least, these positions when they're interim or just before their interim is up? So those are my few thoughts on it. Let's see where else we go. Any comments?
That's clear as mud. Okay, so I got to slow this thing down a little bit. We're here today at 5 o'clock meeting to discuss the contracts of the city attorney, I'm sorry, not city attorney, city manager and the city clerk. And Mr. Colodey, I heard you say that you brought in, I think what you were saying is you wanted some kind of performance evaluation. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you brought that into the discussion. And I think after enough we've had a lot of discussion about that on the dais over the past year or two, and I think that from what I can tell, there's a strong desire, probably from the majority of the commission, for some sort of performance evaluation on those that we hire, which would be the manager, the attorney, and the clerk. And I will say that I'm certainly not against that. But I'm confused at how this has seemed to stymie the discussion for tonight. Jake, you talked about a request for proposals. So are you? So I'm just trying to get this, make sure I understand where you all are coming from. Mm-hmm. Do you want to then go out for some sort of job search or request for proposals on the jobs? I wasn't clear on where you were going with that. What's your?
Let me try and take it from clear as mud to gin clear. I think it only proper that we advertise these positions. We do for most city positions, probably all city positions. I think in fairness both to the people who are interim now and to the rest of the public who might have an interest, might have qualifications, maybe not as good, maybe better, but I'm not sure if we should proceed without at least advertising.
Okay, so I want to clarify, we have an HR department that puts out an advertisement for employees when we're hiring vast majority of positions in the city. That is not the way you do a department head as a manager, clerk, or attorney. You're going to do what is a job search. Usually, not always, you hire an outside company, and it costs a lot of time and takes a lot of money to start with a process of whittling it down to a specific individual. My question to you is that what you're saying you want to do, is go out for a job search and spend that time and money on a search for, and then I want to clarify, are you talking about the manager, the clerk, or both?
Both.
Okay. So what I'm hearing then is you also agree that you want performance evaluations on those positions?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
I mean, look, let's face it, after an interim of 6 months, wouldn't you in your own head be trying to evaluate these workers?
Well,
I
I
you ready?
evaluate the people I work with on a constant basis, so yes. But if you want to move to as I said earlier, a formal performance evaluation, I just did one for the executive director of the TPO. They're relatively common. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I can see that it seems to be an important issue with a lot of people, so I'm certainly willing to go along with that. Commissioner Colodi, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Commissioner Sachs has said that he wants to set up an RFP or go out for set up a search for both. Is that where you feel on that? What's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm not in favor of that at this time. I think that we really have to do an evaluation of our employees first. And if they come out positive, and we're very comfortable with it, then we simply hire them, and we don't have to go to that next point. I believe in appointing from within wherever it's possible. On performance evaluations, I did see one come by that had a bunch of numbers on it, and ratings and weighted averages. I'm not looking for that, because those are basically, they're subjective, and you can fill out whatever number you want. I prefer to see an evaluation with relevant questions, one of which I thought was very thorough, and just have a point for our comments, so we can really share what we think. It could take hours to discuss the various aspects of the performance, but I would like us to establish some type of written record where we can go forward on that.
Okay.
Without that, I'm not comfortable. I'm more than happy to discuss each of these positions as we have them now, but I would really like to have some type of performance evaluation done by us to see if we have to take the next step.
Okay, so the point of tonight was to direct the commission usually would be the mayor, to go ahead and enter into contract negotiations with the city manager and city clerk, and to bring back to us something that we can take a look at on the next meeting. You're not there yet, is what I'm hearing, and
Yes.
certainly Commissioner Sachs isn't there. He wants to go out for a job search. So my question then to you is, the only final question I have is, I think what I'm hearing for you is you want to do an evaluation on those with those contracts before you consider hiring them full-time.
Yes, but I would also like to go for the third position and have the same type of evaluation.
Okay,
So that we're uniform
Yeah.
and we're consistent.
I get that. So my only question to you is, I guess, and I understand what you're saying. I would like to move forward on locking down 2 interim employees that I think are very solid. However, what I would propose is we can get the performance evaluations done, but not exclusive to having to be before we enter into contract negotiations with the manager and the clerk. So what I'm saying is you want to have the evaluations done before we do that, and I'm saying let's get them both done. One not being mutually exclusively dependent on the other.
The only difficulty I have with moving along with both of them at the same time is that those evaluations could affect the parameters of the negotiation with the particular employee. That's why. Now, I do not want to drag this out. If we decide to go ahead with some type of performance evaluation, I would like to see us finish it, do it, and have it for our next meeting so we can carry this discussion forward.
Well, seeing that the mayor is out and
Correct.
the way this is developing, I was anticipating we would give direction for the mayor to enter into contract negotiations, but I think we probably at this point we're kind of at a stalemate. Let me back that up. I think that we should consider waiting for the mayor to come back before we take any. I think that we should consider waiting for the mayor to come back before we take any action, and have the mayor's thoughts on this. But anyway, that's my feeling.
Okay. I would be comfortable, if I might just have one last comment. I would be comfortable with us moving ahead with some type of performance evaluation. I would even be comfortable moving ahead, having the mayor start his negotiations after we receive those back. And if there's any difficulty with interim contracts running out, I'd propose that we extend them indefinitely until we solve this problem, or this issue. It's not a problem.
Mr. Vice Mayor, question for council.
Sure.
Ms. Avalone, is it not proper form to advertise for positions, even though you may already have in mind a very good candidate for a position?
You're not required to.
You're not? Okay. And would it not be prudent, and I'm speaking to my colleagues as well, to have a performance evaluation? I do think we are ahead of the ball a little bit. We're not even finished with the interim positions, and you'd like to discuss a firm contract at this point. I just think it's premature. I'm not there yet.
The interim position is sunsetting.
Yes.
We actually moved it up so we can get the negotiations moving quicker, but the interim position is only there until we've either determined not to retain or to retain the position, the person full-time, on a non-interim basis. So I'm not sure where you say it's premature. I've worked with Khalid for almost 7 years, and so I'm comfortable with that amount of time I've seen him. I've also anyway, we don't need to go down that path right now in that discussion, but, I don't think it's premature.
So my thoughts on this is that we've been discussing this for several months. This has been almost 9 months since we appointed Khalid initially as an interim. So if you had any intentions on going outside or doing a search, I think the appropriate time to discuss that would have been during the budget process, because there is going to be an expense involved in that. And why in the world will we drag this out almost 8 or 10 months, if we wait till January to be a year before we would have decided that? That should have been done at an earlier process than here now. At the last meeting, we said we want to move forward with the contract negotiations for the 2 interim positions. Now, regardless of where we go with that, I certainly have some thoughts on what needs to be in a contract that is with either the interims or even at some point if we renegotiate carries. And that I think compensation should be inclusive of all benefits, not just salary, but also they include the car allowances, health care, vehicles, that sort of thing, so that we look at a total package and we're not just looking at numbers. Because every time you raise someone's salaries, there's incidental costs that that's coming out of pocket. You're going to be paying more FICA, more withholding, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's other ways to compensate employees that would be to their benefit, and I think it's on an individual basis, because obviously Khalid and Kelly are a couple years apart, so they may have different, issues or needs. So I think that's something that we should look at. I agree with the evaluation process. There needs to be an evaluation of some form with the 3 employees that we do have. We've talked about this for a while, and even a month ago, we said that in April, we're going to look at the budget process for the city commission. And at that time, we would discuss performance enhancements or benefits to those employees, and we could put them in the budget process. So I certainly think that if those appraisals were done by April, on a one-on-one basis, and then collectively we said, yes, we're all in agreement, and then we could move forward at that time during the budget process, would be the appropriate time to do that. And then the other thing is, I have some concerns in the policy and procedure manual. The 5 of us are exempt. The city manager, assistant city manager, city attorney, city clerk are exempt from the policy and procedure manual. To me, that kind of shows that we're in a different realm than the rest of the employees. And I would be opposed to that. I would encourage Renina to maybe look at that and see if we couldn't remove that from the policy procedure manual and address those issues that may have a conflict. Because in the current contract, in the interim contract, we do refer to the policy procedure manual. So that would kind of clean things up. It would add a little bit more transparency to the whole process. And also, in the event that there was a performance issue, there's a procedure in that manual that you would report those kind of things to a supervisor. So, those were the 3 things that I would look at in any contract that we go forward with. Is compensation is across the board and not necessarily all including pay. There is a form of evaluation process where it's an individual. Hopefully, it'd be a one-on-one type of situation with a consensus between the 4 or 5 of us at some point in prior to the budget process, and then we look at the policy and procedures manual. Now, having said all of that, we're really doing a disservice to both Kelly and Khalid in that they can't backfill the assistant positions. We're short-staffed. Kelly has been working on some ideas. She's making some improvements, but she really needs an assistant's position filled so that she can get that person trained and up to speed for the new software that's coming online and stuff like that. The same thing with Khalid. The poor man's running ragged trying to do 2 jobs. And so I think in all fairness to him, we should proceed sooner than later. I'm okay with starting the process now because it's been 9 months and there's been no talk about we should advertise or go outside. So why it all of a sudden came up now, I'm a bit surprised. So having said that, where do you want to go?
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I don't disagree with a thing that you said. One clarification, you mentioned that this process, we should set it up and be done by April so we can budget correctly for it. You're not suggesting we extend the interim contracts till April, are you?
No, sir. I think we should begin contract negotiations post haste and have something done within the next 30 days or so.
I agree with that. Also, we did at a previous meeting, we discussed that we were doing research through staff as to salary ranges for the various positions. I haven't seen that come back yet, but I haven't looked at everything. So I would think that, along with performance evaluations, if we could have all that information by our next meeting, that we would be then in a position to authorize negotiations if we felt that way, which I suspect we would.
So I mean, all of the salary studies are back. This is probably just in your email. And from what I understand, and Bernina can correct me if I'm wrong, we're pretty close to the upper of the midway or mid-salary range. Both employees got a bump when they were put in the interim position. Both of them have received the cost of living adjustments October 1. So I think, I would hope that that would be sufficient for now till we get to the next budget cycle. But that's the whole process of negotiations. So as long as it's a comprehensive, across the board, whether it's salary, car allowance, et cetera, I'm fine with that. But I think to put it back or put it off any longer is doing a disservice to not only those two people, but also to the residents. There's issues that should be handled by others, an assistance, and we need to get those things in process sooner than later. I just got some new evaluations this afternoon. I've looked through them. They all looked, some of them look better than others, so I would like to, by next meeting, maybe have two, if we could all agree on two of those evaluations that we could put forth in a future contract. I think that would be good. That would at least get that process going. And, I would be comfortable with assigning someone, to start the negotiation process. We certainly can look at the interim contracts, look at some tweaking here and there, and then have those available, and then do the evaluation. I talked to both of them this past week, so I've kind of already done my little mini evaluation, and I'm comfortable with staying in-house. I've seen others. I've been a part of a big city and a smaller city, and I've seen good and bad from going outside or staying in-house. So, if you have good quality people in place now, there's no reason to spend the time and the money and the effort to go outside. And my position is we have that here. So
what I'm trying to bridge is, I agree, and I think I see where Commissioner Flody's going. I guess the question is, how do we, in my mind, the performance evaluations that you want to get done before we enter into contract or assign someone to enter into contract negotiations, it seems we have to, each one of us is going to have to go look at all the different ideas, and we're going to have to talk about it. So I guess my question is there a way that we can go forward tonight by doing both, as Vice Mayor Hartman said? Or are you adamant that you want to do and get an evaluation first before we assign probably the mayor into a contract negotiation with the city manager?
That would be my preference. However, we do have a number of options for performance evaluations. Each of us is more than capable of picking out the one that they feel would be most appropriate, completing it, and having it done by the next time. And then authorize, and I think the mayor would be the proper person, to proceed after we discuss it at our next meeting. One other comment. We do have assistant positions. Is there any reason why we haven't tried to fill them at this point?
Well, we don't fill them,
Correct.
and I could not imagine that someone would take the job not knowing who their boss was going to be. Just
I wouldn't be surprised, but I know what your concern would be if you were looking for a job, because that might affect me
the
also.
new manager comes in and then boots you out, and anyway. So I guess going back to what I hear from you is you want to get the evaluation done before we assign someone into contract negotiations.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess what we need, okay.
both interim contracts have go-back clauses in them. so that if they're not
Yes.
picked or selected, they go back. So it would be foolish to appoint someone and do salary adjustments and everything else if in a month or two you're going to go, oh, no, we're going to go outside. And so now you have two assistants. So I think
That's a valid point.
we've been at this for almost 9 months, so.
Yeah, but I think what I'm hearing from the commission is that we got at best, a 2-2. So I think we all agree on the employee evaluations. So I think that we can move forward with that, and we're gonna probably need to move forward to the next meeting, assigning someone to negotiate, to start contract negotiations. Now, Commissioner Colodi said something that was interesting. There's a lot of different forms out there. Any of us can pick, we can actually create our own form and bring back an evaluation that articulates our thoughts on the positions. And then we can adopt something formal that we would all review
After that,
going forward, and we don't have to be pressed for time in other words, what's bothering me is we want to get this evaluation done before. I don't want to hurry the evaluation. I think there's no misunderstanding. I'm not a huge fan of public evaluations, how that works. I do them, they're fine. I'm not a big fan. But I want to move the contract negotiations quickly as we can, but I don't see a majority vote going through tonight on that anyway.
Don't know unless you make a motion.
But if you would like to make a motion on the evaluations coming back by next meeting, I'll certainly entertain, support you on that.
okay, let me try this. I'll make a motion that all commissioners and the mayor prepare an evaluation on the two employees in question in a form that they find the best way to kind of establish their feelings. I would also include in that motion, if it's acceptable to the attorney, to appoint the mayor at the next meeting as the person to handle those evaluations.
But at the
Negotiations, excuse me.
I think we would make that motion at the next meeting, not.
Okay, I can accept that.
You don't want to be willing to assign the mayor to enter contract negotiations now within that motion, though.
Oh, I would appoint them now, but I just think from a logistical standpoint, knowing that performance evaluations are coming about, that he probably wouldn't want to go ahead. I certainly wouldn't want to.
Comment, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Sure.
Well, we have, did we have a motion?
No, we have a
We did
motion. Is
not.
there a second?
Second for
You
discussion.
made a motion?
Okay, it's seconded. So on the motion,
Just to clarify, my motion is to complete performance evaluations in time for the next meeting. Keep it as simple as that.
I'd like to amend that, if I may, in that we come to a consensus on a uniform evaluation by the April budget meeting.
It's accepted to the motion person.
Second the amendment.
Okay. So we're going to do evaluations now, prior to the next meeting, whatever form you want to use, and by April 1st, we will have a consensus on a form that we will use uniformly.
And at least I will take my evaluation and I'll forward it to the attorney so that it's available public. We can't discuss it, but at least it'll be available there.
So what do you want to do with these what do you want to do with these evaluations by the next meeting? Am I going to,
Well, so on the motion, there's a motion to do the evaluations before the next meeting, and then have a consensus evaluation by the April 1st. That will be a uniform evaluation.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the evaluations should be uniform. We were given a few examples. They were probably all very good examples of evaluations. I think we should all use the same one.
I agree with you, but to get this thing moving forward, I think as long as we do something now in the next 2 weeks, and then we have a couple months to do the process so where we can have a consensus one, I think that would be, my opinion would be that would be the better way to go. So, if you're all right with that. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Kelly, please call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Sacks?
No.
All right. Motion passed. Is there any other discussion? So, the chair can make a motion, can he not? So I make a motion that we direct the mayor to start contract negotiations with both interim positions as soon as time is available, and to consider those evaluations that will be out by the next meeting. So, because we're short a meeting in December, Novembers are going to be tough, so I'd rather at least get the process, if I can have a second, sorry.
Second.
Okay, discussion. So we at least get that process going forward. We may just look at the interim contracts and go, those are fine with us. The two employees may go, hey, great for me, we're good. All we have to do is settle the evaluation process. So, any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Kelly?
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Commissioner Sacks?
I have to vote no.
Motion passed. I think that we've covered everything that was on the agenda discussed. Is there any other business to come before us at this time?
There's an issue that I would like to raise. It pertains to our next meeting,
Okay.
and it has to do with the appointment to the Charter Commission. At our last meeting, we had a pretty in-depth discussion as to who goes first, who goes second, so on and so forth on our appointments, and we are lacking the mayor at this point. I have discussed with the attorney and the interim manager that if we delay those appointments to the next regularly scheduled meeting, it will not interfere with the process of moving ahead on the charter review. And I just think it would be better. We've delayed other things, important things, which it certainly is, in the past, and I would like to do it. The reason I'm bringing it up now is a number of the people who wish to be appointed and the general public. I don't want them to have to wait to the end of the meeting to bring the subject up, so I just wanted to talk about it now.
Yeah, I had no problem. I mean, again, my whole understanding was we were gonna make appointments but I got what you're saying, I understand it, I have no problem moving the charter review picks until the next meeting when the mayor's available.
The mayor had indicated that he was going to go last anyway, and that he would only pick from those who had put applications by today's meeting date. So postponing it, I don't think is going to do any harm or good. I would be in favor to go ahead and get it over with, because nothing's going to change between now and then. If he goes last, he goes last.
Yep.
So I don't think any of us have intentions on picking the same person.
Well, I think we might,
We'll see.
and that's it. And I have more than two people I'd love to see appointed to the commission. So I would like to go last, but that's not something that we can discuss now, which is why I would like to put it off a little bit. And it will not delay the process at all.
I would be opposed to it, because then we're going to have to advertise again, or, we'd have,
Well, regardless of what you do, I think you do need to have the discussion at the 6:30 meeting, because
6:30.
you may have people show up and tuning in, so
yeah.
As long as we have that discussion early in the meeting.
maybe under changes to the agenda, you guys could talk about it.
Yes.
Good idea.
Anything else? If there's
No.
no further business to discuss, I declare the meeting adjourned.